The Las Vegas Aces just got away with highway robbery, and the entire basketball world saw it happen. When A'ja Wilson commits 37 uncalled moving screens in a single playoff series while Aliyah Boston can't even breathe near the paint without getting whistled, you know something stinks worse than week-old gym socks. This wasn't basketball. This was a masterclass in selective officiating that would make even the most corrupt referee blush. The 2025 WNBA playoffs have been controversial enough already, but what happened in that Aces versus Fever series crossed every line of competitive integrity imaginable. Before we expose exactly how the refs handed Vegas this series on a silver platter, hit that like button if you think the WNBA needs to investigate these officials immediately. Because once you see the evidence we're about to reveal, you'll understand why fans are calling this the biggest officiating scandal in women's basketball history. Let's start with the most damning statistic that nobody at ESPN wants to talk about. Aliyah Boston, the Fever's dominant center who battles in the paint every single possession, didn't shoot a single free throw in games 1 and 2. Not one, zero. Meanwhile, A'ja Wilson strolled to the line 26 times across the entire series like she had a VIP pass to the charity stripe. Boston managed just 17 free throws total. And get this, nearly half of those came when Vegas was intentionally fouling in the final minute of Game 4 just to stop the clock. Strip away those desperation fouls and the disparity becomes absolutely indefensible. But that wasn't even the worst part of this officiating circus. The moving screens Wilson got away with would make Draymond Green jealous. We're talking about screens, where she's literally shuffling her feet like she's doing the cha-cha slide, sticking her hips out like she's at a dance club, throwing shoulders into defenders harder than an NFL linebacker. Multiple analysts went back and reviewed the tape frame by frame. The count? 37 uncalled moving screens from Wilson throughout the series. That's almost 8 per game, where she's breaking the rules right in front of the officials' faces and they're acting like Stevie Wonder behind those whistles. What happened next would make even the most casual fan question everything about this league's integrity. In the third quarter of Game 5, with the Fever mounting a comeback, Boston sets a textbook screen at the top of the key. Feet planted, body straight, completely legal by every definition in the rulebook. The whistle blows. Offensive foul on Boston for a moving screen. The replay showed she didn't move an inch. Even the commentators went silent because they couldn't explain what they just witnessed. From that moment forward, Boston had to play scared, tiptoeing around every possession while Wilson was out there playing football without consequences. The double standard got so ridiculous that Christie Sides couldn't hold back anymore in her post-game press conference. She straight up said that Aliyah Boston is the worst officiated post player in the entire league, and that there's a clear double standard in how calls are made. When a coach risks getting fined thousands of dollars just to speak the truth, you know the situation has reached a breaking point. Sides pointed out that if the refs want to allow physical play, then allow it for both teams. If they're going to call holds and pushes, then call them both ways. But consistency was apparently too much to ask for when A'ja Wilson was involved. Here's where things get absolutely infuriating for Fever fans and anyone who believes in fair competition. Wilson wasn't just getting away with moving screens, she was committing violations that elementary school players would get called for. There's footage of her literally double dribbling on a spin move, touching the ball with both hands mid-dribble like she forgot the basic rules of basketball. Another play shows her taking 3 steps without dribbling, a travel so obvious that youth league refs would have caught it. But because it's A'ja Wilson, the supposed face of the league, the whistles stayed silent. The free throw disparity tells an even uglier story when you dig deeper into the actual gameplay. Boston spent nearly every defensive possession guarding Wilson directly, absorbing contact, staying vertical, contesting every shot without fouling. She's one of the best defensive players in the league precisely because she knows how to defend without fouling. Meanwhile, Wilson was often switched onto smaller Fever guards to conserve energy, rarely having to battle Boston one-on-one in the post. Yet somehow, Boston ended up with 19 fouls across the series while Wilson had just 14. Make that make sense. But wait, it gets worse. The moving screens weren't just missed calls, they were game-changing plays that directly led to points. One screen where Wilson practically tackled Lexi Hull led to a wide-open three-pointer. Another illegal screen with her legs stuck out like she was trying to trip someone created space for an easy layup. 4 offensive fouls that weren't called resulted in 10 points for the Aces. In a playoff series where games are decided by single possessions, those 10 points might as well have been 100. The overtime period of Game 5 was when the favoritism stopped trying to hide. With 2 minutes left in a 2-point game, Wilson sets another blatant moving screen right in front of the baseline official. No call. The play results in a three-pointer that essentially sealed the Fever's fate. Indiana players were looking at the refs with their hands up like they were asking if anyone was actually watching the game. The answer was apparently no, at least not when it came to calling fouls on the league's golden child. What makes this whole situation even more suspicious is the timing of these non-calls. Every single time the Fever built momentum, every time they strung together a few good possessions, that's when the phantom calls would appear. Boston gets called for breathing too hard near Wilson. Hull gets whistled for existing in the same zip code as an Aces player. Meanwhile, Wilson is out there playing by playground rules where apparently anything goes as long as you're wearing the right jersey. The aftermath of this series has been nothing short of explosive in the basketball community. Former players, analysts, and even some current players who requested anonymity have all come forward saying they've never seen officiating this one-sided in a playoff series. The film doesn't lie, and when you watch these games back without the emotion of live viewing, the bias becomes even more apparent. It's not just bad officiating, it's selective enforcement that appears designed to produce a specific outcome. Lexi Hull's comments after the series were particularly telling. She talked about the constant elbows, the off-ball shoves, the moving picks that never got called. She said she's played against physical players her entire career, but has never experienced anything like trying to guard Wilson with the refs, basically giving her diplomatic immunity. Hull counted at least 15 plays where she was hit with enough contact to warrant a foul call, and not a single whistle came. That's not basketball. That's basically sanctioned assault. The statistical evidence is overwhelming when you look at the complete picture. 0 free throws for Boston in 2 games while being the primary offensive option in the post. 26 free throws for Wilson compared to Boston's 17. 37 documented moving screens that went uncalled. 19 fouls on Boston versus 14 on Wilson, despite Wilson playing more aggressively on both ends. These aren't just numbers. They're proof of a system that protected one player at the expense of competitive integrity. Here's what should really concern every WNBA fan moving forward into the 2025 season. If the league's officiating can be this blatantly biased in a playoff series, what does that say about the legitimacy of the entire competition? The Fever didn't lose because they were outplayed. They lost because they were playing 5-on-8 every time they stepped on the court. The refs weren't just bad, they were actively working against Indiana's chances of advancing. The most frustrating part is that this robbery happened in plain sight. Everyone watching could see the moving screens. Everyone could see the double standards. Everyone could see Boston getting mauled in the paint without calls while Wilson got free throws for minimal contact. Yet the league acts like nothing happened, like this was just another playoff series with some questionable calls. No, this was a hijacking of competitive basketball, and the victims were the Indiana Fever and their fans. What's even more telling is the complete silence from the WNBA office after this disaster. No statement about the officiating, no acknowledgement of the concerns raised by players and coaches, no promise to review the game film and ensure better officiating moving forward. The silence speaks volumes about where the league's priorities lie, and apparently fair competition isn't at the top of that list. The 2025 season needs to be a turning point for how the WNBA handles officiating accountability. Fans deserve better than watching predetermined outcomes disguised as competition. Players deserve better than having to overcome not just their opponents, but also the officials who are supposed to be neutral. The integrity of the sport demands better than what we witnessed in that Aces Fever series. This isn't just about one series or one player getting favorable treatment. This is about the future of women's basketball and whether fans can trust that what they're watching is legitimate competition. When officiating becomes this corrupted, this obvious in its bias, it threatens to destroy everything the league has built. The WNBA can't afford to lose credibility when it's fighting for respect and viewership in an increasingly competitive sports landscape. The evidence is undeniable. The film doesn't lie. The statistics paint a clear picture of favoritism that goes beyond simple human error. A'ja Wilson might be a great player, but she shouldn't need referee assistance to win games. Aliyah Boston deserves to compete on a level playing field, not one tilted so dramatically in her opponent's favor that victory becomes impossible regardless of how well she plays. If you're as outraged as we are about this blatant robbery, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because we'll be exposing more of these officiating scandals throughout the 2025 season. The WNBA might want to sweep this under the rug, but we won't let them forget what happened to the Indiana Fever. This league needs accountability, and it starts with fans demanding better. The question now isn't whether the refs helped the Aces win. The evidence makes that crystal clear. The question is what the WNBA plans to do about it, and whether they care more about protecting their chosen stars or preserving the integrity of their sport. Based on their silence so far, we already know the answer, and it should terrify every true basketball fan.